There's nothing like the devastating scent of midnight madness to reduce a male to a quivering slave. You have the audacity to spurn me?
Snatching up a dagger, he strikes at Superman.
You beast!
Clark's first instinct, misogynist that he is to manhandle the princess for her bad behavior.
I'd rather tackle a dinosaur than a woman anytime.
I should hate him, but I don't. I love him.
Hello, and welcome back to the Almanac Comicopia, your guide to the DC Universe. Today's video picks up where we last left off with Superman in the Golden Age on Earth 2 in 1939. Without further ado, let's get back into things. First off is a serial called Superman and the Runaway. It was originally published from mid-June through the end of July and was colorized in Superman number 3, which is where we'll be taking a look at it. The story kicks off with a small child escaping from the state orphanage's dormitory, completely unnoticed. Eventually,
Overcome by hunger, fatigue, and heat, the child collapses.
incidentally, Clark has taken up the habit of walking to work. Maybe this has something to do with the whole car protection league issue, and thus he sights the boy and an oncoming train.
Good grief!
Later on the page, Clark manages to catch right up to the locomotive. Just in time, of course, as always, he passes it, briefly squats to pick up the child, and leaps to safety. Meanwhile,
As the train grinds to a halt, excited passengers and trainmen pour out.
commenting on the rescue. Far away now from the rescue scene, the boy revives, questioning.
What happened?
Never mind, but what made you pass out like you did?
Hunger. I haven't eaten in 2 days.
We'll soon fix that. Come with me.
After treating the boy to lunch, Clark informs him, in the excluded panel, that he's a reporter and would like the boy to answer some questions. Oddly, though, he grabs the child by the arm, asking,
Where do you live, Frankie? I'll take you home.
Let me go. I ain't got a home, I tell ya.
Clark's really creepy here. When Clark grills him about being a runaway, the boy makes claims to the superintendent's abuse at the orphanage, crying out.
I won't go back to that state orphanage. Do you hear? I won't.
Shamefully, Clark's first thought is of the story he could publish. I'll choose to read into this as excitement that publishing the story means a higher likelihood of social justice, and not a piece of ego, but I would be interested in your thoughts on the matter. Shamelessly pulling from the 1924 Little Orphan Annie comic, yes, the Annie that you're thinking of, Siegel has the boy, Frankie, recount the specifics. There's food not fit for humans. The boys are hired out as hard labor, scrubbing the floor for hours and hours. In a fatherly turn, Clark tells the boy.
I may be able to help, but I wouldn't do anything without your assistance.
He then quashes Frankie's fear by framing him as the other boy's potential hero. Kind of a sick move if you ask me, though. Clark tells Frankie that he can go back to the orphanage to be Clark's undercover agent, documenting and reporting the superintendent's injustices.
Frankie's inner struggle is reflected upon his features. To return to that loathsome slavery or cling to his precious freedom.
With gusto, Frankie decides.
I'll do it. I'll go back.
However, the boy begins trembling fiercely at the doorstep of the orphanage. Continuing his streak of insensitivity, Clark tells the trembling child there's nothing to be afraid of, just as he brings him across the threshold of a nightmare. Oh, thank heavens! Clark grabs the superintendent by the collar, yoinking him off the boy, demanding,
Take your hands off that boy.
before playing his hand.
I'm reporter Kent of the Daily Star.
Honestly, I'm somewhat shocked to see Clark acting as, anything but a coward when he's outside of his uniform, and it was actually quite the relief to read this scene right here. Hearing that Kent is a reporter, the man shifts his tune, crafting excuses for his poor behavior. Perhaps over-eagerly, he tells Clark,
We're always pleased to have visitors, aren't we, Frankie?
after an excluded panel showing Clark questioning whether the child was lying or if he should trust his impression of the superintendent as a wily rascal. The reader is granted certainty on the matter.
What did you spill to that snooping reporter? Tell me, or I'll smash that pasty face of yours. Tell me! Tell me!
Poor Frankie. Clark's thrown him right to the wolves. Back at the Daily Star, Lois rejects Clark yet again for a lunch date.
For once and all, will you please let it register in that thick dome of yours that I dislike you heartily? Understand?
Brutal. Now, in the editor's office, Clark is handed the convenient task of digging up dirt about the state orphanage. His guilty conscience about the lovelorn situation leads him once again to ask,
Why not have Lois help me cover that angle?
Sounds swell.
What a break. Ho ho! She'll have to bear my company now whether she wants to or not.
"Oh, Clark, how glad I am that you do indeed change, and change so very much." Now, with Lois, Editor Taylor explains the situation, while Clark comments,
I'm sure she'll be only too delighted.
Delighted? Why?
Then later,
I'm going with you only because I am forced to. And don't you forget it.
What difference does that make, as long as we're alone?
"What the fuck, Clark? What do you even mean by that? What did Siegel want you to mean by that?" Alright, y'all. First time, I'm putting a straw poll in the description. Which cultural icon is Clark more similar to here? Dennis Reynolds, Mr. It's the Implication, or the very classic face of internet culture, the troll face? Please do vote, because I honestly can't decide between these two morally bankrupt caricatures. We never get to find out what Clark was insinuating to Lois, because someone calls after him from off in the distance.
Reporters from rival papers.
In an interesting turn, when Clark tries to blow them off,
Hello, if it isn't my beloved contemporaries. Nice day, isn't it? Well, see you later.
Lois plays up the ruse.
Can't Clark and I have a luncheon date without you rival newshounds butting in?
It seems that Lois's distaste for Clark might be overstated. She doesn't treat the other reporters as the fun, inconsequential interruption they could be to her otherwise purportedly dreadful excursion with Clark. Moments later, after finally convincing the reporters that our two protagonists were up to nothing more than lunch, we get this scene of them in a cab, seemingly getting along famously.
Phew, thought we'd never get rid of them.
I'm not so positive we have.
On the next page, Lois indicates to Clark that he should check behind them. And sure enough, the other reporters are trailing the cab.
We're being followed. Shake off the taxi behind us and there's a 5-spot in it for you.
Leave it to me.
The driver's eagerness to comply is easily understood when you realize that those 5 smackaroos approximate to $115 circa 2024. The driver succeeds, bringing us to our next scene. Now, in front of the orphanage, Clark reiterates the importance of not giving the superintendent, Lyman, any cause to believe they know things are amiss. More interestingly, Lois focuses on the reporters the duo dodged.
I can just picture the faces of those reporters when they read our scoop in the Daily Star.
On page turn, Lois's comment is revealed to be richly ironic, since the reporters spill out of a cab, taunting Clark and Lois about their so-called luncheon date. Clark spins a quick yarn that it's just a routine feature, and Lois chimes in that that's why they didn't bother mentioning it. However, the failure for any employee to answer the door is what drives the plot forwards. The last panel of this page shows Lyman peeking on the reporters and freaking out. Cue Lyman rushing about, trying to right the most apparent of his wrongs, such as the children working in the yard. He instructs them,
Put your materials away and begin to play games.
before continuing with a threatening reminder to lie to the reporters or suffer severe punishment. When he finally opens the door, he tries to make an excuse about filling out reports, to which Clark responds,
They must have been interesting reports. We've been ringing for nearly 5 minutes.
Clark lies that they want to look over the orphanage since their collective editors believe readers would be interested in learning of the good work Lyman does there. As he leads the motley crew inside, Lois whispers to Clark,
How can we carry on our investigation with the other reporters around?
First, Lyman shows the children playing stickball in the yard, and then goes on about his love for the kids, all the while thinking,
How simple it is to pull the wool over their eyes.
Thankfully, Clark is still suspicious. Meanwhile, Lois approaches a little girl to ask her how she likes it at the orphanage, but, as kids tend to be, she's a terrible liar.
I like it fine. Mr. Lyman's very good to us. He never hits us or anything.
Just look at that bruise on your arm. How did you get it? Don't be frightened. Tell me, where did you get that mark?
I fell down.
Lois immediately knows something is amiss, sensing the child's fear. Next, Lois and Clark somehow lose Lyman and the other reporters too. They find themselves in the orphan's quarter, where a child is sick, confined to their bed. The boy says he's
Tired out from playing too much.
while thinking how he can't dare tell her he's laid up from working so hard. At this moment, Frankie sneaks in and grabs Clark's attention.
There's something I gotta tell you, and I haven't much time.
Frankie starts spilling the beans about Lyman's threats, but catches himself and stops before committing completely. On the next page, it's revealed that little Frankie didn't change his mind, but rather saw Lyman opening the door.
If you wish to tell Mr. Kent something, Frankie, go right ahead.
No, there ain't nothing I gotta say.
Clark is left wondering what Frankie was going to tell him while his contemporaries rib him for the lack of story. Back in the cab, Lois gets down to business.
Well, whatever became of your hunch that there was something amiss?
Back at the orphanage, Lyman is locking Frankie up in the attic. Oh man, Clark. Your Machiavellian tendencies have put this child through real physical and psychological harm. The type of harm that motivated him to escape even if it meant death. And you halted that escape. How am I supposed to root for you moving forwards? Yet the story must go on despite my feelings. On the next page, Clark and Lois report to Editor Taylor about not having a story, while we catch a glimpse of Lyman terrorizing the orphans like never before, chuckling to himself.
Did I fool those stupid reporters?
I understand that Clark needed to rid himself of Frankie to be able to act as Superman and potentially rectify this horrific situation. However, I cannot justify his putting Frankie in this type of danger. I feel that a wiser, or perhaps more moral, option would have been if Clark found a stopgap solution for Frankie's safety, and then gone for an errand or something like adults tend to do to survey the situation as soups and plan it out from there. What do you think? Am I being too hard on Clark regarding him putting Frankie in danger? Or are you with me, and him endangering a child that escaped seems like an unnecessary risk and one that deflates the quality of the character? In any case, Superman arrives at the orphanage to peek on Lyman checking the books. As villains tend to do, Lyman's speaking to himself, imagining
What those reporters wouldn't give to see this secret account book.
The perspective shifts before the end of the page to Lois, at home, tossing and turning, kept awake by the nightmarish thought.
Is that orphanage run on the level?
Cue a scene of Frankie freaking out in the attic.
Open this door! Let me out! I won't stop yelling till you let me out. I'll show him. Let me out or I'll wreck the place.
Of course, Lyman departs his desk to deal with him, giving Clark a chance to look over the books more closely. Clark sets out to verify suspicious pricing that he sees in the account book, while Lois is leaving her home at that very moment, thinking,
I'm probably being an utter fool, but I'm going back to the state orphanage to look it over while the superintendent is off guard.
hell yeah, heroine Lois. I like this story for a few reasons, but one is definitely how we see Clark and Lois teaming up within their field. It just seems natural and correct. In Clark's pursuit, and in an already classic fashion, he severely vandalizes the company's property. Inside, he discovers that Lyman is stealing from the state by over-reporting his costs. It's strange that this was the route Shuster and Siegel chose for Soups to shut him down, since it doesn't connect back to the abuse that we've seen. I mean, yes, it's indeed outrageous and evil to rob the state of funds needed to assist other citizens, but it's a different, less direct, and importantly, not previously relevant evil compared to Lyman's treatment of these vulnerable children. Back to Lois, who, in a similar vein to when she stalked Superman at the circus,
breaks into the state orphanage.
I'll look like a perfect fool if nothing is amiss.
Lyman, who was in the middle of whipping poor Frankie, attracted Lois to the situation. Now, busting in, she cries out,
Stop it!
You're one of those snooping reporters. What are you doing here?
I suspected you of just this sort of thing. I'm going to print what I've seen.
But she doesn't finish her sentence since Lyman decks her on his way out the door.
Out of my way. You'll never print that story. I'll kill you first.
Lyman sprints to his cash box, hoping to make a quick getaway. Holy shit! This guy is the real deal capital E evil. He intends to set fire to the entire orphanage.
Laughing with mad glee, the crazed superintendent sets fire to the orphanage.
I'll burn it down to the ground. They'll never catch me. I'll skip the country.
As orphans flee the building, Lois and Frankie begin to suffocate inside. At this moment, Superman sees
The superintendent rushing from the burning orphanage. The coward's gone insane.
I found myself wondering here if witnessing the fleeing children would assuage Clark's suspicions about anyone trapped inside, and if it would lead him to prioritize Lyman instead of using his X-ray vision to double-check. In any case, Clark has no trouble stopping the car and yoinking Lyman right out of it. Notably, Superman demonstrates a new technique here.
A light pressure upon the rear of Lyman's neck, and the superintendent passes out.
Better yet, he immediately considers that
Right now, someone may need help in that burning building.
inside, Lois is passed out and Frankie's clamoring for help. This does get Clark's attention, who is then promptly told,
Wait! There's a girl in the room!
we're never shown what Clark does, since this is the next panel. Superman flees immediately, also not shown, leaving Lois dazed and confused.
What happened? How did I get here?
That guy we've read so much about, Superman. He brought us down safely, then beat it.
Lois barely has time to process the info when Clark appears, telling the coppers who have arrived at some indeterminate point,
Arrest that man. He set fire to the orphanage.
The subsequent final panels are nothing too mentionable. A shot of a Daily Star front page about Lyman's cruelty, and a follow-up with Clark at the orphanage asking Frankie about the new superintendent. Before moving on, I would like to confess to an error I made earlier in this video series about Superman's 1939 adventures. While it is my intention to only showcase Siegel and Shuster's work with the Man of Steel, I failed to realize that Superman and the Skyscrapers and The Most Deadly Weapon were not actually drawn by Shuster. I didn't even realize, which perhaps is an indication of the quality of training and resources Shuster provided his Ghost team. In any case, Action Comics number 15 is another Cassidy-drawn production, so I'll summarize it here rather than do a deep dive. The Daily Star sends Clark to a place called Kidtown, a community for underprivileged boys to avoid crime and experience positivity, in order to interview the creator, who promptly reveals that his $2 million debts will result in the closure of Kidtown within 2 weeks. Thus, Clark decides to raise the funds himself. Interestingly, as I mentioned at the time, it's revealed here that back when he conned the oil scammers, he kept the $1 million from selling off the stocks. Presumably, this means he's no Spider-Man, not in want of rent money each month, even after the upcoming acts of charity. After collecting some cash rewards for things he would do anyway, Clark gets a lead via his job. He interviews a man who was on a treasure hunt. Immediately afterwards, he decides to take a 2-week vacation to acquire the treasure himself. 2 separate villainous criminals read Clark's story about the treasure and each decide to throw caution to the wind to acquire it. What ensues the villain versus Superman competition, rife with trickery, for acquisition of the gold treasure. In the end, Clark takes care of business and makes the $2 million donation, all without impacting his own financial standing. Next up, in Action Comics number 16, we see Superman notice a man carrying rope, suddenly realizing
He's going to commit suicide.
after saving the man, Clark questions him.
What made you do it?
You shouldn't have stopped me from destroying my worthless life. I'm a thief. I've stolen money from my trusting employer.
After some subsequent dialogue, we find out the man gambled away all of the money, but seemingly is cognizant of how suicide would ruin his family's lives. At home, Clark realizes gambling was the likely culprit for the man's downfall. He doesn't seem the criminal type. The next morning, at the office, he approaches Editor Taylor.
How come gambling's permitted to flourish in the city of Metropolis? And why hasn't the Daily Star done anything about it?
Editor Taylor confirms for Clark that should he find the facts, that they'll print them.
There's only one thing I want to know, Commissioner Watson, and that's, why haven't you clamped down on gambling?
We're doing the best we can. Murders and robbers keep us busy enough without our chasing after tin horn gamblers.
In my opinion, gambling is just as revolting a crime as any other, and it's your duty to strictly enforce the laws against it.
Are you telling me I'm incompetent? Get out!
Triggered by this confrontation, and disgusted by the lack of available legal means to pursue, Clark decides Superman will deal with the problem. If only we had Superman. First, Clark spies on
Marty K., proprietor of the Dixie Club, gleefully counting the evening's take.
$5,000. One night. Not bad. Not bad at all.
adjusting for inflation, that's 115 grand, by the way. Upon Superman's intrusion, K pulls his gun. In the ensuing scene, Clark makes quick work of him and the goons.
An instant later, Superman races into the gambling room, commences smashing the equipment.
The gamblers protest in response, prompting Clark to claim that they cannot win.
Whatever do you mean we can't win? We're willing to take our chances.
That's just what you haven't got. A chance. And I'll prove it.
Clark then reveals a mechanism underneath the table, which has allowed the house to cheat the gamblers for who knows how long. Angered, they contribute to Superman's destruction of the joint in this fantastic scene. Next, Clark demands access to the safe, and upon Kay's refusal, breaks into it anyway, robbing the fool blind.
Shortly later, the inhabitants of a poor section of the city look up, astonished to see a man's figure hurtling through the sky above.
He then rains the cash down on the poor, throwing money at the problem. This was unfortunately comedic to me. Incidentally, on his leaps and bounds home, Clark happens to land in the yard of a couple arguing about, you guessed it, the husband's gambling problems. Sure enough, despite any promise to the contrary, the husband dips into a neighborhood barber shop.
How much'll you bet today? Make it $5. And for gosh sakes, keep it quiet. If my wife should find out.
Just a casual $115 or so. Gosh! Clark's waiting outside, demanding this ostensible victim's watch.
See how easily I crush your watch in my palm? If you don't quit gambling, I'll look you up and give your neck the same treatment.
What the fuck? Clark then waltzes into the barber shop and displays his ferocity to coerce the bookie into spilling the beans.
Jack O'Leary is the man you want. He's got the numbers racket under his thumb in this town. Every petty operator pays off to him.
Now, at the O'Leary residence, Clark busts his way in, trapping O'Leary in his own home. Eventually, the man understands his predicament and produces a list of all his gambling connections, much to Superman's pleasure.
The next few hours find Superman occupied in wrecking the various establishments about town.
During this rampage, Clark overhears an operator telephoning City Hall about the protection they promised. After some time, the commissioner himself strolls into the gambling den. Clark swings in through the window immediately afterwards.
Good evening, Commissioner. So, you're the man I'm after.
Terrorized by Superman, the commissioner telephones the city's leading gamblers.
Right under Clark's watchful eye, creating a sting. The issue ends with the crooks scared out of town, the commissioner resigning, and Clark receiving the usual praise from editor Taylor. I'd like to pause for a moment to comment on how appreciative I am of the back-to-back social justice issues, each of which tackled something that is unfortunately universal as far as I'm concerned. Across time and place, I think gambling and domestic or child abuse are very real issues. Speaking of the gambling issue that we just read, I found it particularly interesting how Clark had to reveal to the men that the house had cheated them out of their money, creating a situation where they only had the illusion of being able to win. I think with the digitization of gambling, there may as well be just the same amount of fuckery going on from the house, just it's more hidden than ever. That's all without even commenting on the gotchification of video games for children and other things. All of this is just to say that I think Shuster and Siegel told a very prescient story at this moment, even if it's not super important to the Superman canon. And now for something unlike anything we've yet seen here on the Almanac, and to my knowledge, something that was wholly unprecedented. This video ends with a single story, and yes, you can see how much time there is left in this video. That single story is the 8th serialization of the Superman Dailies, Royal Deathplot. It is very notable for its length. Every prior serialization was 5 weeks worth of stories tops. This whopper was released from July 24th of 1939 all the way through November 11th. That's 15 weeks. Let's dive in. Siegel's verbiage for Lois in the introductory panel is priceless, and kicks off the story on a wonderful note.
I feel in a conciliatory mood, Clark. Would you care to join me for dinner tonight?
I wonder what's gotten into her. Is this perhaps a ruse to embarrass Clark? Nevertheless.
That evening,
Make yourself right at home while I put the finishing touches on my dinner.
Okay, I'll turn on the radio.
What's this? Is she actually considering Clark a worthy friend? Or more? And so soon? Surely this has to do with the orphanage issue and the buddy cop vibe that these two reporters had while dodging their peers. Surely. Since Clark decided to turn on the radio, he hears the following.
Flash. A distress signal has just been broadcast from the Royal Yacht Milan, en route to America from Rangoria, with King Boru and his daughter Princess Tanya aboard. An unknown submarine is trailing the Milan and its 2 convoy ships. Impending violence is feared.
Clark cannot abide the situation, and although it is not shown in the comic, I cannot help but feel he's enjoying the Uno reverse he's pulling on Lois by disappearing. In any case, out the window he goes. Poor Lois.
Well, here we are. What the... He's gone?
Damn, Clark, you goofed. Clark climbs the building and stows his clothes on the roof. Foreshadowing, perhaps? Then he leaps off as Superman, spending the entire next strip traveling to the shore and out into the sea. He arrives just in time to discover that the convoy's warnings have been fantastically ignored by the hostile sub. In the next strip,
before Superman's shocked gaze, a torpedo speeds toward the Milan on its grim errand of death.
Superman manages to outrace the torpedo and deflect it with a mighty underwater punch. However, a second torpedo was already on its way.
さて、2個目はどうする？大抜き。
Now,
Man and torpedo meet amidst a terrific explosion.
in the meantime,
The sub rises and opens fire.
on the Milan. In the next strip, Clark is able to board the hostile sub, helpless before Superman's might. One seaman is promptly thrown overboard. Immediately thereafter, Clark begins dismantling the sub's weaponry. In the next strip, the reader is treated to the villain's perspective, where, in a distant office, a monocle-wearing suit and tie orders the sub's crew to destroy it and themselves, all to preserve some type of plot. The ship's commander is all that's left on Clark's list now, and collar in hand, Clark demands to know,
Why did you attack the Milan?
You'll never live to know.
Out kicks the commander's foot, triggering a terrifically non-OSHA compliant self-destruct button, the results of which you've been looking at. In the next strip, we see Clark,
Caught by the explosion's mighty grip, flung, twisted, and turning into the ocean's depths, stunned into unconsciousness, he drifts senselessly at the mercy of an underwater current.
We know he was never in danger.
As Superman regains his senses, he strikes out for the surface.
Catching a glimpse of the Milan, Clark manages to get aboard the Milan, and after skulking about, happens to end up in the perfect place to overhear a conversation.
Within the captain's cabin,
Have you any idea why we might have been attacked?
I have some pretty definite ideas, Your Highness.
The crux of their talk is that the king's political rivals would benefit if his mission to make friends with America resulted in his death there. Frightened by someone approaching, Clark whirls about, grabbing a young woman for some reason. After a half-hearted apology, she slaps his face.
Take that, cur. Do you realize what you have done? You have laid hands on Princess Tanya.
Unconcerned with his transgression, Clark wisecracks.
I suppose that being a princess gives you the privilege of being ill-tempered.
Certainly, things have gone off the rails, right? Well, in the last panel of this strip, she realizes he's the figure the Milan's passengers witnessed earlier, absolving Clark of any need to take responsibility for the skulking, manhandling, or general rudeness. Lucky you, Clarky boy. Clark departs the Milan, for some reason, leaving Princess Tanya pining.
I've always dreamed of finding so masterful and gallant. We'll meet again, but next time he won't get away so easily.
The next strip elucidates his departure.
Now to phone in my story.
The rest of the strip features Mr. Monocle and co. verbalizing their intention to strike the Milan when it docks. What a riot! Clark thinks he can still...
Return to Lois's apartment. I'll have some job explaining my absence.
For some reason, Lois is still holding the tray of food once he makes it inside. And doesn't he smell like the sea?
What's the idea of running out on a date after begging for one for months?
Immediately, though, she realizes she couldn't care less why, and kicks him out, only to go for a walk and discover an extra special edition of the Daily Star. Front and center is Clark's credit for the story about the sub-attack. We know Lois is smart as a whip, so it's believable that her immediate reaction is,
How could he have left my apartment and gathered this information in such a short time?
She decides she'll be present for its docking tomorrow at 9. Suffice to say, Clark is shocked when she appears.
Why, Lois. What are you doing here?
Minding my own affairs. And I'd be obliged if you'd do the same.
Ooh, get wrecked, Clarky boy. You goofed big. The next strip reveals that an assassin is waiting amidst the crowd. Clark notices the assassin,
slipping a deadly bomb from under his jacket.
Realizing, however, that he's in a bit of a bind.
He's too far from me to stop him naturally, and if I use super strength, I'll reveal my identity as Superman.
Naturally, as someone who realizes he cannot draw attention to himself, Clark brilliantly decides to steal a camera and hurl it with his superhuman might, causing the assassin to drop the bomb. Yeesh. I'm putting this one on Siegel, personally, and not Clark, but if your read is that this is just Clark being a dummy, I'll take it. Talk to me in the comments, please. Holy hell! When the assassin's confronted by the crowd, he jumps between the ship and dock, only to get final destinationed.
A great wave rams the ponderous Milan up against the dock. A soul-shivering shriek, then silence.
Lois is rightfully shaken more than I am.
He was crushed to death!
But he deserved it.
Moments later, as depicted in the next strip, Clark's bombarded by a laudatory mob, much to Lois's confusion and dismay.
Clark, a hero. I don't get it.
In the remainder of that strip, comically, Clark phones into the Star to report on the events, securing himself yet another story. The next day, his coworkers heap praise upon Clark before an emissary of Rangoria appears to invite him to receive their thanks for his heroism. Throughout the events, Lois observes confusedly,
Clark Kent, the center of attention, acquainted with royalty.
The next strip shows Clark arriving for his rendezvous with royalty. After waiting for some time, the king and princess arrive and declare,
You shall be rewarded for your bravery.
Name anything.
An interview with you will be reward enough. You see, I'm a reporter.
In the interview, the king refers to the terrorists as the Black Gang. Immediately upon the conclusion of the interview, Princess Tanya pulls Clark aside for a few words. Check his face. Behind closed doors now, she first clarifies that
What I'm gonna ask you is strictly off the record.
You may rely on my discretion.
Who is the Superman who rescued us?
Superman. He's a man possessing super strength who battles injustice and assists the oppressed. Very little is known of him.
Clark presses the princess on why she's asking, prompting her to reveal that she thinks she's fallen in love with him, to Clark's dismay. In an interesting turn, as the princess concludes inviting Clark to a reception later that evening,
Within the next room, the butler surreptitiously makes a phone call.
about Clark being offered this very invitation. Using his super hearing, he gathers the phone number dialed. Now, in the next strip, Clark uses his renown as a reporter to reach the chief phone operator and reverse look up one Dr. Laren, using that phone number he overheard. Just like me, Clark is pondering.
A butler phones a doctor, informs him of my visit. But why? I'll drop in on this, Dr. Laron, and learn the answer.
In a further compelling development, during an inspection for a fake injury, Clark senses
Something's amiss here.
Clark's keen hearing detects muffled breathing in a nearby room.
I'd say this last panel of Clark is one of the best looking close-ups of him we've gotten thus far. What do you think? When Clark tries to pay and leave, the doctor pulls a gun.
Oh, no, you won't. Stand where you are.
In enter the men, and soon they begin threatening and questioning Clark, who only silently grins. Incredibly, Clark allows them to place his hand in a vice, going as far as allowing them to witness his invulnerability. I guess he's just not thinking about it much. Hilariously, in a moment of conscientiousness from Shuster and Siegel, at least that's how I see this, they include the following dialogue.
Whoa. He certainly can take it.
In the final panel of the strip, one of the cronies mentions their superior, prompting Clark to take action. All of a sudden, he fakes injury.
I can't stand it any longer. The pain. Stop.
What a ham! They offer him employment and money in return for silence, so Clark agrees in order to undermine their inevitable plan, luring the princess for a kidnapping. The next strip features a phone call between the doctor and his superior, who demands that Princess Tanya be killed, not kidnapped. Not like it matters with Soup's on the case, right? Then,
That evening,
The bell. I wonder who that is. Lois?
Yes, it's me, all right.
Clark's elated to hear she intends to attend to the royal reception with him, before she snubs him with the reveal it's merely an assignment by the editor.
arriving at the reception,
Not a bad place, is it?
I still prefer my small apartment.
Ooh, Clark. Ay. Soon enough, the princess demands her dance with Clark, reminding him she only wishes to learn more of Superman.
Tell me, is there any way one can contact this Superman?
It would be very difficult indeed. But possible, perhaps.
Are you stalling to plan, or do you already have one, Clark? Lois spots the two dancing.
He makes me furious. Not that I'm jealous, but he could show me a little more attention. Since you brought me here, don't you think that you might dance with me? Once, for appearance's sake?
Gladly. Let's make it the next dance.
Yes, Lois, for appearance's sake. Strangely, the very next panel shows the princess whisking Clark away. Ironically, she requests they go for a drive for privacy. And throughout, Clark's concerned whether he should pretend to align with the terrorists when they arrive or not, likely concerned with his secret identity. Suddenly,
Mind if we park here?
Not at all.
You know, despite my feelings for Superman, there's something about you that attracts me too.
Really?
Clark must be trying his very best here to fumble, and boy is it funny.
Odd, but when the shadows fell across your face a moment ago, I was startled by your resemblance to Superman.
Me? Resemble Superman?
It's a red herring, of course, as the princess immediately concedes that it was a trick of her imagination. Yeah. That strip wraps up with each of the characters reflecting on the interaction, with the princess scolding herself for comparing such different men, and Clark breathing a sigh of relief. Now at the rendezvous point, the terrorists appear, knocking Clark out and kidnapping the princess.
As the kidnapper's car speeds off, Clark drops his pose of unconsciousness and leaps erect.
Ready to act as Superman. The stakes are high, with the Black Gang member declaring his intention.
Put a bullet in your brain right now!
Clark is dozens of feet above the vehicle at the moment, mid-bound, but since he can't fly, if he doesn't reach the vehicle on the end of this leap, he'll probably be too late, right? Aha! He lands in front of the vehicle, causing it to swerve and disrupt the gunshot. Then,
Swifter than lightning, Superman seizes and tears open the rear of the car.
in the subsequent strip, Clark safely maneuvers the princess, literally shakes the men out of the car, and then smashes it to bits in a single punch. As the men hurry to flee, Clark yoinks one of them and bowls him into the others.
It's been a long time since I've bowled, but here goes. I haven't lost my form.
A second car comes speeding by, and as they try to gun the princess down,
Superman scoops up the princess and leaps for the tree overhead.
If only you knew how I've longed to have you hold me like this.
This is no time to get romantic.
I love how he basically tells her STFU. In the next two strips, Clark battles the men. Then, suddenly,
Look out!
in an awesome feat, Clark manages to unroot a tree and javelin toss it at the vehicle in what can only be a few precious seconds. The remaining men are so stunned that Clark has no problem whatsoever scooping the princess up once again and jumping off into the distance. The next serial features the princess fawning over Superman until they arrive at her residence.
Don't leave me again. I have something extremely important to tell you. When I signal you from my room, come.
I'll await your signal.
Back at the reception, the suspense continues.
Clark and the princess have been gone a mighty long time. What can they be up to?
I wonder what the princess wants to tell me.
In a hilarious strip, the princess keeps Clark waiting while she dolls herself up.
There's nothing like the devastating scent of midnight madness to reduce a male to a quivering slave.
Suddenly,
The signal.
finally, he leaps into her room, cutting straight to the point.
What did you wish to see me about?
Can't you guess?
So much for quivering slave, eh? Clark is a tad annoyed about this predicament,
You had me come up here to tell me that?
and after further goading from the princess, he gives her the spiel about romance having no place in his life battling injustice. Now,
You have the audacity to spurn me?
To put it briefly, yes.
oh Clark, in this way, you could never change. Princess Tanya is feral with rage, apparently never having been told no before in her life.
Snatching up a dagger, Tanya strikes at Superman.
You beast!
Uh-oh, Clark, what are you gonna do? What ensues is such a sharp right turn. I could only say, no way, over and over again to myself for literally like 15 seconds. Clark's first instinct, misogynist that he is to manhandle the princess for her bad behavior, putting her over his knees to spank her. To make matters so much worse, the art depicting Princess Tanya likens her behavior to a toddler, a wee lass, creating an overt tone of misogyny in the scene that is inseparable from Clark's. Continuing in this manner, once Clark wraps up, he comments to himself,
I'd rather tackle a dinosaur than a woman anytime.
while Tanya, in a spot of terrible writing, lusts after him.
I should hate him. But I don't. I love him.
It's time for Clark Kent to step back into the picture.
Clark returns to the royal reception.
What a time I'll have explaining to Lois.
I'd like a word with you, Mr. Kent.
I've been looking for you.
In the new funniest moment of Shuster and Siegel's work so far, Clark desperately requests Lois to dance, to give him a chance to explain himself. Instead, she asks for him to take her home. Now, during the cab ride,
As they drive homeward, a cold, brittle silence envelops the two.
before Lois slams the door in Clark's face. This last panel is brilliant, with the many separate puffs of smoke accentuating Lois's slam. Clark's approached at work the following day by one of the doctor's compatriots. Lois happens to notice, defiantly stating to herself aloud,
If there's a story in the wind, Clark's not going to keep it to himself if I can help it.
Once he arrives, Lois trails him inside. There, she overhears their dialogue about the princess's intended doom, and how they need to rid themselves of Superman. Shocked, but somewhat thrilled to discover that Clark's not on the straight and narrow, she thinks,
I'm glad I tailed him. It will be a pleasure for me to expose him.
now that's a spicy meatball, Lois. You gotta be fucking kidding me! I'm not making this misogyny shit up. Check it.
Lois, overhearing Clark's consent to trap Superman, drops her pocketbook in the shock of her anger.
Yeah, okay. Now she gets captured, prompting Clark to immediately question her presence. Shuster and Siegel create some humor out of this despicable scene, where Clark stops the doctor from shooting Lois by convincing him that Superman will be coming to rescue her, as he's frequently done in the past.
You filthy traitor!
After a strip detailing the poisoning and kidnapping of the Rangorian royalty, we see Clark leave Lois in the men's cruel hands. Oh, Clark. Conveniently, Lois is brought to the same holding warehouse as the royalty. Nice. After reintroductions, one of the villains interrupts their wishful thinking about Superman.
I have an unpleasant surprise for the Man of Steel.
This villain, Kober, has betrayed Rangoria and intends to make the king sign orders Kober himself orchestrated. He explains that while he can't combat Superman,
I am prepared for him. Behold! Giant whirling mirrors to render him helpless through hypnotism.
leave a comment if you laughed out loud from that like I did. Incredibly, the machine works, as they demonstrated on Lois, who has no idea what happened to her. Clark easily makes his way into the building and to its prisoners, busting through the wall, when suddenly...
You've met your match, Superman.
Instantly, searing light beams flash from the whirling mirrors, bombarding the Man of Steel.
And boy howdy does he look stunned. Slowly, step by step, though blinded by the contraption, he trudges toward the machine, breaking free unceremoniously, inevitably smashing the machine a moment later. Then he takes care of some goons while Monocle Kober threatens Lois and Co. at gunpoint to evacuate through a secret panel. Kober herds himself and his captives into a metal-lined room, commenting how he's prepared himself for this eventuality. Clark steps in, having easily caught up.
Now to square accounts with you.
Stand back, or I'll pull this switch. This switch can kill us all. This room is electrically lined. The moment the connection is made, we'll all be electrocuted.
Gee whiz. This is so dumb. But Soups rips the switch off the wall before Kober pulls it, which neutralizes the mechanism rather than activating it or making it go haywire or something. Better yet, when Superman descends on Kober to enact justice, Kober cowers backwards into a live wire, killing him instantly. Ugh. In a change of events, when the police arrive, Superman doesn't flee, instead telling them,
This is one time I'm certainly glad to see you.
Bagora, I've done it. I've captured Superman.
My congratulations, Captain.
Unfortunately for the police, they blew their chance to cooperate, since he flees the scene right afterwards. In another funny turn, the police arrest everyone temporarily before a sergeant verifies their identities.
Hold on. Where do you think you're going?
I'm a reporter. must turn in this story.
Sorry, but you'll have to come along to the station. But I tell you, I'm the King of Rangoria. Yeah, and I'm a little Lord Fauntleroy's long-lost brother.
Later, at a precinct station.
My humble apologies, Your Majesty. Of course, you're free to go.
Have I a story? This ought to get me off the Lovelorn assignment and onto the news columns. Out of my way, you ordinary mortals. I've just uncovered a yarn that'll make history. Where's the chief?
In his office, wondering where you been.
She rushes in.
A front page scoop. And I'm going to hand it to you on a platter. It's startling news. You won't believe your ears. First, Clark Kent is a traitor who works hand in glove with kidnappers and murderers. And
But then, Clark busts in.
Someone mentioned my name?
Clark Kent, you dare to show your face around here? You scoundrel!
Clark produces a fresh extra for Lois to read. The reveal that he was two-timing the terrorists leads her to go as far as apologizing to old Clarky boy.
Please forgive me. I've been a fool.
Aren't we all? At times?
What about when he ran out on dinner? Shucks, Lois. I know you must have been mighty shocked, but this saddened me. The final strip of this story, and the closure of this video, features the Royal Rangorians extending hospitality to our favorite reporters before shipping off.
You know, I hate to see them go. They might have been a royal couple, but
They were tops.
I think this was unintentionally awkward thanks to Lois's timing and word choice, which is a shame because I'm rooting for them. After a bit of research, it seems that this was slang that fell off by the 1960s, and I was just unfamiliar with it. Anyway, that was an uneven and at times perturbing ride. While it's indeed epic in its scope, I don't think I'd recommend you read it. And that wraps up today's episode about Superman on the Almanac Comicopia. This episode has been brought to you by
Rachel!
our resident narrator,
Dan Pugh here. Read more comics.
the voice of Superman,
slower than a speeding bullet, less powerful than a locomotive, unable to leap practically at all. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's me, Sam Katz.
and first-time guest, Aurora, as Princess Tanya, and, of course, me, Troy. Here's hoping you've had an informative and enjoyable stint with us today. Tune back in about a month for the conclusion to Clark's 1939 adventures by Shuster and Siegel. What will happen when he and Ultra clash next? Will Lois score her reporter gig back? Looking farther into the future, we've got 2 more Superman videos after that to close out Shuster and Siegel's pre-Justice Society of America work. After that, it's time for the Batman.